Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's panel discussion, um, broadcast live from Salon Roy, right here in Northwest Washington, D.C. on Connecticut Avenue in Woodley Park. Today's panel discussion will be discussing the history of the iconic Marilyn Monroe mural, which sits atop Salon Roy right here on Connecticut Avenue. It's one of DC's oldest public art murals. And we're going to talk about the creation of the mural, its refurbishments through the years, how it came to be, and probably get some stories here and there about some things in between. So we're looking forward to this. We have a great panel today. And this discussion is a part of a project going on right now that is produced by the DC Murals organization, founded by Dr. Perry Frank, who's in the audience today, but not on our panel. So thank you, Dr. Perry Frank, for being here to be a part of this, even as a witness. And special thanks also to the Associate Director for DC Murals, Corey Stowers. And currently the exhibit that's going on that is part of this discussion is called Aerosol, Murals for Our Times. This is quite an amazing external public art gallery mural installation at 901 G Street, that is at the newly refurbished and remodeled Martin Luther King Library. So get out there, check that out. It's a retrospective of DC graffiti writers from the 80s and onward. And that ties into our discussion today about this public mural and the original painters and creators and how it was refurbished and who refurbished it and how we got to where we are now with a very recent repainting of the mural that occurred just last year. So I'd like to introduce our panelists today, who are all going to get a chance to talk at various times about their roles in this project that we're discussing. I should say that we are broadcasting live from the room that Roy Benard, who is the founder of Salon Roy, cut hair and engaged with citizens throughout Washington, D.C., right here in this corner, which you can't see, right by the window. He's also working on a book right now that sort of chronicles and talks about his experiences cutting hair right there for 52 years. So we'll get to that in a little bit as well. But all the way to my right, we have Diva Castagigi. She took over Salon Roy in 2006. You say hello, Diva? Hello, everybody. Okay. Microphone up.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you so much for being here. We're definitely looking forward to hearing your story about your involvement in the restoration process through the years of the mural. Sitting next to Diva is Kevin Irwin, aka Jazi Rock. And Kevin Irvin is a legendary graffiti artist, graffiti writer, talented artist from Baltimore, Maryland. We're very happy to have him here. He was leading the art team that restored the most recent restoration of the mural. So, Kevin, if you'd like to say hello.
Hello.
And last but not least, Salon Roy's founder and lead architect. It goes without saying, not to be too cliche, but a colorful individual and character. Obviously, me and Jazi didn't get the memo on the all red today, but we're going to roll with that. Roy Benard is all over, has his thumbprints all over this project and this iconic salon here. And so, Roy, would you like to say hello?
I sure would. I always love to say hello. And is there anything else you want me to say?
Plenty, and we'll get to that. Okay, so let's start. Now that we've had all the introductions, let's. And last but not least, my name is Tom Pipkin. I'm a 32-year DC resident. I work in art and culture in DC, from music to multimedia things, supporting local artists, muralists, and I'm honored and humbled to be asked to moderate this panel with these amazing individuals. So we'll keep it moving. Where to start? Well, where do we always start? From the beginning makes the most sense, right? Roy Benard came to DC from a tiny town in North Carolina called Poplar Branch. In his teens, came to Washington, D.C. as an FBI clerk. And from there, moved to New York to dabble in modeling for 15, 20 years. I guess dabbling is the wrong word. Established himself as a model in a variety of print publications. And then eventually made his way back to Washington, D.C. To eventually open the salon here in 1969. And sometime after that, well, more than sometime, about 20 years after that, the idea of creating a beautiful, iconic, massive mural at the time for Washington, D.C. There were not very many large-scale public-facing murals in the city. This counts as among the first. And so the first thing we want to talk about is, Roy, how did this come to be? Why Marilyn Monroe? How did you engage with the artist John Bailey, who would come to paint the first version of this? So let's start at the beginning. And if you'd like to talk a little bit about your history in coming to DC and prior to the mural creation, that's okay too.
Well, the whole Maryland situation certainly begins with my childhood because she entered my life when I was 12 years old, and I saw her first movie called Asphalt Jungle. And in that movie, I saw her eyes, and I had those same eyes. They were very sad, and I have never considered her throughout her career to be a happy woman. She was very sad, and I was very sad at that time because I was struggling for sexual identity and gender crisis and small town in North Carolina with 300 people. I had no one to turn to. So I made her my best friend. And she sustained me until her death. I was 24 and she was 36. But by that time, I had found my way. And I still loved her, and I still love her to this day. And she's very popular, and she's been dead now 55 years, and she would be 95. I'm 83. And so she has been with me my whole journey. The times I spent talking to her. And when we opened this salon in 1969, my partner at the time, Charles, was called Charles the First. We were coming back from a party in Georgetown, and we were coming down Rock Creek Park, and it was in the winter, so all the trees and leaves were bare. And I saw that wall, and I said to my buddy Charles, I said, we are going to put Marilyn Monroe's Andy Warhol face on that wall one day. And he said, oh, Roy, will you just please stop it? Just stop and relax. Everything's fine. And I said, sure, no problem, but it will happen. And it took 10 years for that to become a reality. And when it did, it was the first actual portrait of a human being in Washington. There was excellent graffiti, well-known graffiti artist, but there was not personality. So it was a success from day one. However, I didn't care whether it was successful or not. I just wanted to do it. That was an ugly wall, and it was facing Rock Creek Park, and it needed to be painted. Shortly after it was on the wall, I received a visit from a DC government official who demanded to see the permit for such a thing.
How long had it been since it had been painted that they came?
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
And I said to him, well, I'm very sorry, but I don't have a permit. But I didn't put any writing on it. It's just a painted wall. And instead of just painting a solid color, I painted the face of a person. And he said, that makes no difference. You need a permit. And I said, well, I'll buy one. He said, no, you can't do that. He said, what you have to do is paint over that wall, get a permit, and put it back up. And I said, sir, with his suit and white socks, I said, I don't think you really want me to do that because it would really, really be a problem. Everybody loves it. It's been in the newspapers now for 2 weeks, and I don't think that you want to do that. And he said, well, I'm going to let you pass, but if you ever do something like this again, you better get a permit. I said, you bet I will. So that was the end of the licensing section.
Classic. And so you weren't getting any pushback from the community necessarily, people complaining. You think it was just government
Oh,
sort of
no.
permit. Somebody noticed it and says, hey, why didn't we know about this?
We did not have one negative response to it. Everybody loved it. All the media were here. And I didn't, honestly, one reporter, I think it was Arch Camp, I'm not sure who it was, said to me, isn't this just another one of your publicity stunts? And I said, well, if it was, you're here. I didn't call you, and you're here. So it can be whatever you want it to be. But frankly, I just wanted her picture on my wall.
It's amazing. And that no better way to come to an image and a realization and seeing it happen, something that really was a passion project for you.
Very much.
Did
so.
you, and did you, I mean, you're a visionary on a lot of levels. I can tell that. I think we all know looking at your career. Did you foresee the power of this mural over the years? Did you, on any level, think that you'd be sitting here today, 40 years after the mural was first installed and painted, talking about it?
Not in the beginning, but after we put her face in the bottom of our swimming pool at a house on 16th Street, and helicopters would fly over on a Sunday with people taking pictures, and it was in the Washingtonian magazine. Diana McClellan, who had a column called The Ear in the old Evening Star newspaper. Yeah, I mean, I did not really truly think. In the beginning, it was just an innocent thought of mine. The wall was ugly, needed to be painted. Why just paint a beautiful wall like that facing all of Rock Creek Park, plus direct hit coming across Connecticut Avenue, plus Calvert Street? I knew that it would be seen, but in my mind, I didn't realize the largeness of it all.
Amazing. And I love the story that you then had that same image, right, painted in your at the bottom of your swimming pool
Yes.
at your house up on 16th Street, which still exists as far as we know.
It does. It is there.
Do you know the homeowner or who
I
who
do.
purchased it?
I do.
Does he or
The
she
reason-
send you updates on its
Oh,
condition
they-
occasionally?
They keep it up.
Yeah.
But one reason why it was still so beautiful is that Georgetown University bought my house in the early 20s when I lost my partner to AIDS, and everybody's world was coming apart. And I had to sell that house, but he didn't like the pool. He never used the swimming pool, so he kept it covered for 15 years. And that is one reason why it sustained itself, and
That's
it's
right.
still there, as vibrant as ever, and can be seen if you Google Earth.
New things we're learning today. Even in the research I did leading up to this, I didn't make sure that you're when you're talking, put it so we can hear you a little better. I'm getting messages from the tech board. Let's talk a little bit about, so the idea took 10 years to really come to fruition. And how did you find John Bailey, the original artist, to paint?
John was a very close friend of my partner Charles Stenson, and in 1981, as our world and the gay world was exploding and everybody's life was being turned upside down, John was an artist in Arizona, and he called and said that he was desolate and he needed some help. Could we help him? And we told him to just come to our house. And we were talking one night at dinner, and I said I wanted him to paint this Maryland on the wall. And he was a portrait artist. His real career was child portraits. He loved to paint portraits of children and was just well known for it until AIDS struck and everything fell apart. But so he came to live with us, and we took care of him and all his needs and whatever help he needed, helpers to help him up there. He just passed away a couple of years ago, just before the refurbishing
Yeah.
of Maryland.
February 2019.
That's correct.
Um, so he had never done anything on that scale
No.
before.
Mm-mm.
Was he trepidatious about it? Was he nervous about going that big? Because I know a lot of artists who transition from kind of smaller scale fine art world into big wall murals. It's a bit of a leap.
If he did have worries about it, he was very good at covering it. And of course, he had so much support once he started. And that was 1981. Woodley Park was a quiet little village then of retired government workers who were just so excited about seeing something happen in Woodley Park. And so he was getting all the attention. And like I said, there were news reporters here interviewing on the street. What do you think of this? Is it going to upset you? Whatever. Um, it was just a wonderful thing. And I began to realize that what was happening was going to be big.
It's amazing. So that really boosted his his career,
Oh,
you know, in a lot of ways as well.
The rest of his life, like I said, he passed away a couple of years ago. But the rest of his life, he had commissions all over the world, actually.
Incredible. Um, so John Bailey paints the mural, brings your vision to life. It becomes iconic. Many articles are written about it. There's a Wikipedia entry solely on the Marilyn Monroe mural, countless articles, news media coverage, etc. Um, the salon flourishes. You're here. This is part of your of the salon. It becomes attached to your business probably, and I can imagine at cocktail parties throughout DC through those years, people talked about it. It gave you a lot of positive feedback and really probably brought a lot of happiness and joy to people.
Well, you're absolutely right. And I've had my share of love, that's for sure. But in the 70s and 80s, when Charles and I opened the shop, it was the first unisex shop to open in DC where men, women, husbands, wives, children all came together. There was no more of the daddies taking their sons to the barber shop and their mothers taking their daughters to the beauty shop, boyfriends, girlfriends. Everybody came here. It was the very first salon that we had them lined up the grand staircase here with people. And another way we built our business, Charles and I, we were considered, I think, probably outrageous, but harmless. And we had a gold Rolls Royce. And every Friday and Saturday nights, we hired a driver who would take us to clubs, and we would be wearing all kinds of costumes and
What years?
turbans.
What year? What, what was the heyday of
72,
of
73.
you and Charles rolling around DC in a gold Rolls Royce?
1972,
Incredible.
73. And what we would do is we'd have the driver take us to all the discotheques
Where,
with
name some
Donna
names.
What
What were the spots that you would go to for the
I'm
club historians
83 now. Take it easy.
Well, do what you can.
One in Adams Morgan called Morgan's. I remember that one. That was very good. And then all the bars, Redskins Lounge, Lost and Found, Pier 9, Plus One, all these.
Did you go to any jazz clubs?
No,
disco?
we went to places that had dance floors because we would dress outrageously. As a matter of fact, people used to double park right outside here when you could double park on Connecticut Avenue, and just to come in to see what we were all wearing. We roller skated here for a while. We wore hot pants here for a while, which is the name of my book, Mr. Are You a Lady? Because I was wearing hot pants, and a little boy he got my gender mixed up. He asked me if I was a lady.
Hey, mister, are you a lady?
But we would go and hit the dance floors and throw cards up in the air. And on the card, it said, "This entitles you to one complimentary haircut at Charles I." And we had people lined up the staircase for the first 3 or 4 months of our
Incredible.
business. And we we started our business by giving ourselves away, and we knew exactly what we were doing. We didn't have clients. We were brand new, just starting. And I came from the modeling. I modeled for Andy Warhol and Playboy magazine. All these people had nothing to do with hair, but I knew how to do hair, and I got my license. And but that's how we built our business, by giving ourselves away, and it came back to us in so many ways, and we're still enjoying that today.
So this was all, during the 70s. So the 1981 installation of the Maryland mural was really kind of a culmination of that as well, which then kind of boosted you, I think, into a second level of notoriety and fame on some levels.
And then the rains came.
And then the rains came. Well, as I said earlier, I think we could do, and perhaps we should, maybe not as part of the DC murals stuff, but the stories that you could tell about DC in the 70s and 80s since you arrived in the 90s are worthy of a book. I'm glad you're writing one, by the way.
Thank you.
So we'll look forward to. And what's the title of that?
The
Working title?
the next book,
Yeah.
My Chair by the Window.
My Chair by the Window. 52 years in this room, in that corner by the window. Wow, if the walls could talk, right?
Yeah.
So this brings us to the first refurbishment. So now we're 20 years later in 2001, and John Bailey is still a colleague and a friend,
Yes,
right?
very much.
And so the first refurbishment, how does that come about? Funding, how difficult was it to get it done? Any details you want to provide about that kind of first 20-year?
Help from many, right, Barry? What happened is that I went door to door in Woodley Park because we made sure that we were friendly with all the people in our neighborhood, and we offered all their staff, all the restaurants, we offered all their staff members 20% off on anything that they wanted to do in our salon. No questions asked, massage, facial, makeup, whatever. Every employee on Connecticut Avenue here loved the shop, and so I went to door in 2018, was it?
2001, first
Oh,
restoration.
2001, yeah, 2018. Uh, that we collected, I believe it was $9,000. And I also had a can at the top of the grand staircase here in the salon that the throats change in here. We were redoing Maryland, and we raised all the money ourselves.
Incredible. And so that restoration took a couple of weeks, probably once John actually started,
Exactly.
brought it back to life. As we know, 20 years is a typical lifespan for a big outdoor mural.
Right.
It's facing the sun. There's a lot of weather elements, etc. So
And the crushed glass in her eyes had disappeared.
great detail to mention. The eyes, if you look closely, had crushed glass, now refurbished, and the last refurbishment with Kevin and crew with mirrors, which they thoughtfully kind of sourced to make sure the sizing and everything was right. So that's a little detail that most don't know. Look very closely. It really brings the eyes to life. So the first refurbishment happens. Again, brilliant. Brings this back into the press. People are talking about it. Makes it, the mural comes back to life. Now, because we're going to talk about the next wave of artists that took John Bailey's original work that he was able to restore and would have done the second restoration had he been alive.
Absolutely.
Right. So finding the next team to restore the mural, this is not just about, okay, who wants to paint it? Let's find some guys who can paint or women who can paint. Essentially, this is a paint by numbers project on a lot of levels. It's already been done. You want the colors to match the original, of course. It's not an amateur job by any stretch, but also this is a labor of love. This is a child of yours on a lot of levels. This Maryland portrait that you connected with as a teen, and then eventually brought you more business on a lot of levels and made you even more iconic, is just a really fascinating sort of journey in terms of that selection of her face, which you did out of a passion project, which in turn fueled your happiness and the happiness of the general public and of your ability to continue your business here on a lot of levels, and a stroke of marketing genius, whether you knew it at the time or not. So the call goes out in collaborate in conjunction with and partnership with the Woodley Park Main Street Group, and I'm gonna have to get some shout outs for the audience on the other, and you probably know the details, and on the other sort of supporters and funders. Not, of course, Diva here I know was a part of that, funding and support. I should say that, okay, on the timeline, it's important to say here, in 2006, Diva Castagigi takes over the salon. Roy is still an anchor hairdresser slash employee emeritus, and still this iconic person in Washington D.C. So, Diva, do you want to talk a little bit about those conversations that happened? You're here since 2006, but now we're really, it was a long time since you purchased the salon or took it over, or whatever combination of elements led you to be leading this and owning this salon. Talk about the Marilyn Monroe mural and what it meant to you when you took over this business. And you can.
I was looking for a lot of different business around because I wanted to own my own salon. And when I saw this particular one salon, I really fell in love because it had a lot of unique paintings all over, and of course the mural. And it was such a different salon than any other salons I look around in DC. So I really fell in love, and I met with Roy, and Roy was so charming, and it's a nice partner to have because when you take over the salon, you need someone whom you can get along. If you don't getting along, you might not be able to go further in your business. So because I liked Roy and I loved the building, and of course the Marilyn Monroe, I was like amazed, like how everything was kept and organized with a Merlin. And I said, wow, I can even develop spa upstairs and even more improve things and do. And I think so that will be great. And my friends like, wow, that's interesting. You find salon with Merlin and all these paintings. Everybody was so exciting and supporting. It took time to get the salon because we kind of negotiated with Roy and back and forth. But I really like the salon, so I was hoping so I can be able to get it.
And I'm sure everybody who is watching this can certainly look at you, Diva, and see what I saw. I saw Marilyn, and when I found out that you too were a fan of Marilyn, it was kind of like a sealed deal.
Yeah, I was like,
Incredible.
wow, this is amazing, for beauty industry to have something beautiful and extra. Like other salons, just unique, simple salons, and this one was something more than salon. And I also attend a lot of events before them, so I thought that this is great place to have a lot of different events. So I organized a lot of different events, and we had a lot of parties here. So a lot of people came in to see the art, and even some of my friends brought more extra paintings of Marilyn Monroe. So it was an amazing time I spent all these years being in this building and enjoying my business.
So again, this picture of Marilyn Monroe's face looming over the business. Looming is the wrong word, I should say. But sort of holding presence, holding court over this business once again brings the salon back to life, because you are attracted to the space because of this incredible mural. You're also a Marilyn Monroe fan, who wasn't on a lot of levels during that time period, and still to this day, right? And and as Roy said, he took one look at you and the aesthetic, and your sort of love and support of this iconic actress, and here we are. And so now 2006, you take it over. Then we come to the next restoration. And I should say, as a bit of a sidebar, we want to recognize some of these other, or at least one other major mural that was installed about the same time as the Marilyn Monroe mural here. And this one is just right down the street in Adams Morgan, and it's also still running, as they say. It's entitled "A People Without Murals is a Demuralized People," originally designed and painted by Carlos Salazar, and then also restored twice. By local artist Juan Pineda. And one time, the first restoration took place just because it was faded and it was a typical, 20-year lifespan. Juan Pineda comes in, does an incredible job at the restoration. And then maybe 8 to 10 years later, timeline might be a little bit wrong on that. There was the minor earthquake in Washington, D.C., which affected some older buildings. And that was one of them. And there were cracks all throughout that mural. So Juan Pineda came back and restored that mural as well. So in terms of sort of the family of murals that existed in this time period and in people's consciousness, I think it's appropriate to mention that one as well. And it's just right down the street. So shout out to the Adams Morgan community and to Juan Pineda for restoring those things. And thank you, Waters, if anyone would like one. Thank you, Corey. So let's get right into something that's a little bit more focused on this program, and Aerosol Murals for Our Times, which is curated and organized by Corey Stowers via Dr. Perry Frank and the DC Murals project. After this, we won't get into the selection of the artists necessarily, because I think I touched on that briefly. This wasn't just about who can technically pull this off. This was about a connection with Roy, who is the visionary behind this entire project and behind the Marilyn Monroe mural, and the artist. And so a call goes out, and it took a little bit of time. I think it was a year and a half before the project was actually fully funded to do the restoration. And in steps to this picture, Kevin Irving, aka Jazi, aka Jazi Rock. He is a early graffiti writer and artist in Baltimore and the Washington, D.C. area, with an incredible story on his own. Some of this is mentioned in more detail and chronicled in more detail in a recent Washington Post article about the restoration. And Kevin Irving comes out of a little part of Baltimore called Pigtown, and what's that? Doghouse. Oh, Doghouse. Okay, pardon. And well, I'll let you, Kevin. So we want to talk a little bit about your upbringing. You're coming up into graffiti as a graffiti writer, as an artist in your own right, and how you came into meeting Roy and what that meeting was like. I know Roy has some stories to share about that as well. But I want to turn it over to you, just in terms of your coming up. How old were you when you first picked up a paintbrush or spray can or whatever your first medium was? Where did that journey take you?
Well, I won't talk about graffiti, but the first time I seen Marilyn, I was in a bus coming from Samuel F.B. Moore's school in Southwest Baltimore. I was probably 10 years old. I was born in 72, so anyway, I was like, wow, how can somebody paint that big? Like, that's amazing. And I knew about Marilyn Monroe from my mom. My mom was like real old school, and she listened to like 50s music or anywhere I thought was old school, but I knew who the lady was, and I was like, wow, how could somebody do that? That's amazing, which is just so funny. I mean, it's so odd that I had a thought as a child. I think I seen her before I even thought about writing graffiti or like writing my name. I don't know.
So that was how old you were? 12.
I was about 10.
10.
I started writing at about 11 and a half, 12.
So you're on a field trip to DC.
Yeah.
And just it would have been 83 basically, probably just a couple years after it had been painted originally.
Yeah, it was bright. Is my memory.
So I mean, it's just there's just so many connections and avenues that connect this mural to people, and that sort of connection to you as a young kid, and really potentially inspiring you to go big on walls and to create public art on a lot of levels is remarkable. So how did you hear about the call for the restoration in which just happened? Did somebody email you? Did you see it? Did you?
He was talking about. He's like, you need to come meet Roy. So I was like, man, I don't know how this ain't gonna happen. But you know, you like get a lead for something, and they say, I can't even think of the saying, but like you gotta try. You gotta try out to find out if you can win or something, or just show up. 90% of whatever. So I figured I might just go take a look at it. If he would have said you got to go for a bid against other artists, my self esteem, I'd be like, there's no way I can win. I would have probably never even. But I met Roy and
So
he
you
just
knocked-
sold himself to me.
You
I
knocked on
was
the
like,
door,
this
came up into
dude
the
is
salon.
awesome.
You knocked on the door, came upstairs, or did
Oh,
your
no,
friend
I-
introduce you?
Yeah, he introduced me. I don't. How do we meet Roy?
Were
I
you
don't
here in
know.
this room when you met?
We met at the hotel. Oh, it was beautiful. He was dressed something similar, rocking all these like gold chains and just really nice, not gold chains, like rings, and just carried himself really his mannerisms. And he just talked, and I was like, wow,
Swag.
yeah. And I was thinking, dude, this happened. He's like, you're it. Like one thing, I can't think of the sayings right now. I'm a little nervous, but you gave me ambition and inspiration, and I already had a reason. And I knew about John through Byron. I
Right.
got electrocuted working at Department of Education, and I wanted to be an artist. I realized they're like, so what do you want to do? Like workers' comp. I was like, I either want to be a sock model, and I got bad scars on my legs, or I want to be an artist. Like that's what I want. Like, but anyway, I forgot.
So first meeting with Roy. So, but Roy, I want to get like your first.
I'll
Okay,
tell
we
you
got,
about
we
the
got you,
content.
your impression. Now, Roy, Kevin comes in. You're at the lounge at the hotel or wherever you're in the
Beautiful.
lobby.
I love the place. Yeah.
And so describe your first meeting with the artist who would eventually restore your beloved iconic mural.
I just saw this guy as a little boy, a gentle little boy, and I grew up with Kevin. He reminded me of so many of my friends that I grew up with in Poplar Branch, and easygoing, easy to talk to, and at that time, I did not realize that we were going to have to go through a process with the Woodley Park Main Street Association, and that if it was going to be financed partially by the government, that they would have to have a role in choosing the artist. And I really felt bad because I'd already told Kevin that I don't want to interview anybody else. I'd talked to 2 or 3 other people. But Kevin said something really funny in our interview. Well, it wasn't funny. It was very special. He said, you know, Roy, what I really want to do is I want to rent a pup tent and I want to live up on the roof for a couple of weeks so that I can bond with Marilyn. And I said to Kevin, well, you can do that, but you have to get a tent big enough for 2 because I want to be there with you. And from that moment on, it was just love at first brush.
Amazing. So, Kevin, you sort of have a great first meeting with Roy, and then kind of continue to check in with him over the months and over the course of a year and a half, I think. Like, what was the time period from your first meeting with him till you first got up there on the roof and started painting?
I would say it was definitely a year. We constantly text, and he's like, "You're it. It's happening." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, it's happening."
And he won
Yeah.
contest.
That's
and,
right.
We were all here holding our breath because we had met him, and I just so wanted him to be the one to do it. However, if it had worked another way, then I would have dealt with that too. But we didn't have to. He won, and we were so proud.
And so let's fast forward a little bit. So Kevin, you get the call or the email that like, okay, you've been selected. And one of the things, we mentioned briefly your kind of mentorship relationship, mentee mentorship relationship with G. Byron Peck, another noted local artist and muralist. And specifically for this mural, and full disclosure, I also worked on the restoration project with Kevin and through the Main Street group. And shout out to Jennifer Kuiper for also pushing this through and really making sure that this happened in an appropriate way. And that one of the things that we all wanted to make sure was that this restoration was going to be done technically appropriately, right? So we're not just putting house paint up there. That it was done in a way that was going to last, and that all the steps were going to be taken to really fully realize the original mural and bring it back to its original sort of state. Happened with the degrading of the color and original images. Even those images, they fade. Even if you look at something that was a picture of something that's now on the internet, when you're really looking at specific tone colors, there's estimation that has to take place. And so, do you want to talk a little bit about G. Byron Peck and the paint system that was ultimately selected that we decided was the best paint is a company called Keim, Keim. These are legendary silica mineral paint producers. The company was started in 1857 ish in Austria, I believe. And so this paint producer, this paint has been used on murals that were painted in the late 1800s and are still running without refurbishment. It is the best you can use. It takes a little bit of understanding technically how to work with it. Not everybody can do it. So I want to give a shout out to Kevin and also his partner on this, Andrew Funk, who really dove in and figured out how to use this paint. And we met with reps from Keim. There were dozens of emails about how to do this and the way to do it. And it's not a common paint. And so, Kevin, do you want to talk a little bit about, that and working with Byron to get some more information on that paint system?
So I said I was injured, so I did an internship, which meant cleaning. And Byron needed my skill set in Photoshop, like, apps and stuff. I guess Photoshop 4 was big. But anyway, I gave him a bunch of stuff, which he never had access to. He's like an artist. He puts pictures together. Anyway, but the more it gave me right to like clean up his stuff, and I would ask questions, and that's how I learned about the paint. And from actually seeing, if you still see his murals, in the sense of DC murals, Byron's got a few of them. Now he does more tile set, but they were always bright. Like, I think this stuff really works. The paint. Oh, and when meeting Roy, I realized, like, okay, I want this stuff to be up when I'm dead. Like, if they say that Keim really does have a reputation for whatever, I guess anything that costs $300 a gallon is better be good. Yeah, I mean,
yeah. So I think when approaching a restoration like this, it's important. This is a multi-pronged approach, right? Technically, you want to get it right. You want to represent and recreate the original vision that John Bailey worked off of, which was a Warhol lithograph. Is that right? Yeah, and I know Kevin and the team worked really hard to really get that color match perfectly, and worked with the Keim reps to get that. They were excited to be on board with this project as well, because this is not just your average mural, some run-of-the-mill piece that doesn't have this historical, cultural, social connection like the Maryland mural does. Yes, of course. Yes, please do.
One moment, I was at the computer, and it was the first time that it actually made me, and you just made me think of this, made me realize just how important this mural has become to artists. I was sitting at the computer and I just started typing Marilyn Monroe mural, Washington, D.C. 2 hours later, I'm still looking at things that other people around the world have, their interpretation of this mural. I couldn't believe it. And I thought, how can this be? it really took me out of my head. And from that moment on, I realized that, yes, this is an important work of art. And so many other artists from all over the world have done their own interpretation of it. And I would ask anybody if they have a moment sometime, just type in Marilyn Monroe, Washington, D.C. mural, and you will be surprised to see how many different takes on that mural.
Yeah, and I think it's a just your sort of your vision to bring her to life. A lot of times in working with commissioned murals or clients who say we want a mural but we don't really know what we want, and going through that process, um, it, the selection is so important, and it's rare actually, particularly nowadays, that clients, typically developers, as murals we all know are blowing up everywhere. You look left, you look right. Everybody wants a mural now, and a lot of them are amazing. It's no diss to anything that's on the walls right now. But they tend to stay away from hyper realistic images, photorealistic images, people, stories. And I think this is a really good example of why it's important actually to represent people and real people and histories and stories, because that's why this mural is so iconic. People have a relationship automatically and an association with Marilyn Monroe through her history. Everybody has a way they feel about it, whether it's Kevin's early experience as a young kid in DC on a field trip, who was just like, wow, that's incredible. The size, the scale, and it doesn't have to be some incredible, technically proficient work of art. Like, on its surface, it's actually a pretty simple mural, but it's powerful, and it's powerful not only in color choice and the kind of lithographic, Warhol sort of imagery of it, um, but it's powerful because of the association with it. And I think it's important to tell those stories. And so this is a message to all those developers out there who, when we come to you and we present these options and these renderings and these ideas to represent history and people, there's a time and a place for big geometric, poppy, graphic art stuff. There's a time and a place for that, and some of it's amazing. But if we really want to remember our culture and our history and artists and other people, it doesn't have to be a famous actress. We one of the things I work on, I know Corey works on a lot, is representing real local history and celebrating those people. And this is a great example of how representing real people really makes a difference. I mean, the things we've uncovered in this panel discussion are simply incredible in terms of your early connection, the joy it brought you, how it really fostered your business on a lot of levels and other people's businesses.
For example, about 3 years ago, I was standing there by my window cutting hair, and this young girl around 8 years old came up to me and said, "Mr. Roy, I want to thank you so much for putting Madonna on your wall."
Close enough. We'll take it.
And I looked at her and I said, "Well, you're just very welcome." And then one day I was cutting hair, and this guy walks in and he said to the receptionist, "Who's responsible for the mural?" And my receptionist said, "That guy right over there." So he comes over to me and he said, "Why didn't you put Lena Horne on your wall?" I said, "You like Lena Horne?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "Well, find your own wall." We are best friends to this day. I mean, after he said that, we both started laughing because he realized he was being ridiculous. And
well, he should be requesting Shirley Horn, DC's. DC's.
You got to choose one, so you choose your own. But I loved it because I love Lena Horne too.
Sure.
I only had one.
Time to get more. Now, we really have to talk about this legacy and how we're gonna. What's the plan moving forward? How do we? I mean, we don't control. We in this room and most people, like, I don't know, in the corner could go straight up and be redeveloped, and we'd never see the Maryland mural again. That's a real possibility. Until that time, now we know she's going to sparkle and stay vibrant for at least 20 years, probably 30, 40, 50, 60 with the Kime paint system. But I think we really need to celebrate these stories to ensure that we don't know who's coming into this space, right? So the salon has moved. They're up in Bethesda, Chevy Chase. Chevy Chase. I want to make sure I get that right. And it's okay, at the Elizabeth condominium. Is that the location?
One
If you wanna
North
give a shout
Park
out.
Avenue.
Okay.
I can tell you that the owners are very, very happy to have
Of this
Maryland
building.
the building
Yeah.
on the wall. They were major contributors to the refurbishing of it. As far as I know, they have no intention of selling the building. They love the mural, and so I suspect that it will be there for a very long time.
That's good to hear.
And all things changes eventually.
True.
We're
And
just passing through.
this is the nature of public art, I should say. But these type of commissions and these type of murals tend to have a little bit of a longer lifespan. And I'd also like to mention, there's a lot of opportunity. How can I say this? Another part of the power of this mural is that it has not been defaced by other graffiti artists or writers or toys or whatever the proper phrase is. There's a lot of opportunity for other graffiti writers who want to get up and get notoriety. It's a major spot, right? There's a lot of eyeballs on this, so that's another testament to the power of this mural, is that no one's done that. And I think it's also important when we do these restorations to bring in artists who typically, Kevin, you've had the opportunity to be in galleries, you've done collaborations and commissions with corporate clients, you've done a lot of work that's beyond just the street, and that's reflective. But giving an opportunity, and not you really need the opportunity, but I really appreciate that artists such as yourself also welcome the invitation to come and paint something like this. Is not necessarily in your style, or any number of other artists that also respect the public art nature and the power of these things. So again, I want to give props to Roy for that vision and for staying true to that. And it's just reflected in the longevity of this mural. And I think we can all agree. I mean, the building owners understand that, and hopefully there's a covenant in place so that whoever does move in here or buy the building at some point, that mural never goes anywhere. And what an incredible legacy and tribute to you and your visionary ability and history in Washington, D.C.
If anyone that's watching this has any design on defacing Maryland, I would recommend that you reconsider that, because you'll be very sorry.
You heard it here. Yeah. Amazing. Okay. So before we wrap it up, we're coming up on a little bit over an hour. Does anybody, Diva, do you want to say anything else? Mention anything that you didn't get an opportunity to share?
Well, I think so. Wanted to say I'm a myself artist too. I paint oil painting, a lot of paintings I have at home. And I created also one art here in the bathroom. I made a collage of Marilyn Monroe. So yeah, I did that,
realize
and
that.
I kind of I think I have some ideas. Maybe we'll bring some Marilyn Monroe at a new place, because there is a ugly wall there, and maybe condo would let us paint it on the side. There is like wall. I was thinking maybe it will be a good idea to
Let's do it.
have a Merlin there
Well,
outside. The condo where is the wall on the left side.
I think the best way to convince them of that is to let them listen to this
I
panel
know.
discussion to really understand the history of and the
Yeah,
importance of
well,
this, right?
I hope. And then I, maybe took a lot of big paintings from the salon and the new salon. So we kind brought a spirit there, and people wanted to see it. So I just working on that. So that's what I wanted to say. Hopefully we can continue something building based on this.
We appreciate the support.
Because over the years, clients who have moved away and had paintings and pictures of Marilyn Monroe, they would always bring them here and leave them here. And that's why we had 4 stories of Marilyn Monroe all over the place, because they were gifts. A lot of them were gifts from people. Love that.
Everybody knew what to buy you, huh? The man who had it all. In a way, it seems like you've, you know, had a very full career and a time in Washington D.C. and I think everyone definitely appreciates that. Now, not a DC resident anymore, but you're not far away.
I'm not
So,
far away. And I come back every 2 weeks, and Dada she lets me in, I play. Dada lets me in, and I play at my new chair, hopefully by a window soon. Anyway, it's amazing how I feel because I'm looking at that spot over there now, and it's done. The job is done. I don't have that. Everybody's amazed that I don't have this withdrawal situation, but it tells me that it was complete. I finished here, and I'm so looking forward to a new day.
Thank you so much.
Can I say something?
course.
If it wasn't, so you said you work with organizing. I don't know how God works, or meeting you. A friend of mine named V helps me write the proposal. And then working for you, I think I met you at Artomatic at the Heckingers building.
Yeah.
And then you're a friend of mine, Tim, and you're just a b-boy. I call it a b-boy. I don't know what you call, but you're well spoken and you know what to say. But if it wasn't for you keeping things kind of correct, doing research and anyway, I really appreciate your energy and time and helping me. If it wasn't for you, I don't think I could have successfully accomplished. We went through a lot with the scaffolding and
Indeed.
us
Pulled
being
it
a
off, though.
writer. I was like, gotta climb a ladder. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. I was like, we gotta keep it safe, Kevin. We gotta keep it safe. I don't know about the ladder up there, but we'll do what we gotta do.
that's it.
And thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that, and all that to say also, like you guys just crushed it. And between you and Andrew, you know,
You don't like the brush, but he's down.
Yeah.
Oh man, he's an amazing artist though. To work with Andrew is amazing. I wish he was here.
And it was a passion project for you as well. I remember getting, I wasn't out here every day, but I'd get the updates and the photos at the end of the day, and you were like, the dedication was clearly there, and I think that's also a testament to your relationship with Roy, and your connection to this piece. So I think karma and fate played itself out as it has over the decades with Marilyn and with Roy and with everybody involved in this project. We could put up a flow chart, I think, of everybody involved in this and how they all come back circularly in a really positive way, and all the way from Lithuania. That's right. So. Well, we hope so. So with that, I'd like to wrap it up. Once again, I'd like to thank Corey Stowers, the Associate Director for DC Murals, and of course, DC Murals founder, Dr. Perry Frank. Organization was founded in 1997 and bankrolled from money from her bank account and pocket. And what an amazing project! And down the line, became a nonprofit, and will have a legacy as you retire shortly and hand over the reins to Corey Stowers. And we're all looking forward to seeing that legacy live on as well. And again, a reminder to go check out the Aerosol Murals for Our Times. It's an exterior exhibit at 901 G Street. That's the Martin Luther King Library right down in the Chinatown neighborhood. Jump off the metro. It's right there. You can see it 24 hours a day if you want to. You do not need to go inside the building. It's an incredible timeline of the history of graffiti and public art in Washington, D.C. through the 80s. And if you're watching this live stream through the Facebook, I'm sure there's lots of information on that for other associated panels and projects and sort of engagements and activations associated with that. So I want to thank everybody for coming out and being a part of this discussion. And thanks to our tech crew, who I don't know by name, so I apologize, but I think you guys are listed in the flyer. Can we give them a shout out? Let us know who you are. Washington Digital Media. So holler at them for live stream, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure you guys have a bunch of stuff on your menu of ability. So Thank you guys for making this run flawlessly. My name is Tom Pipkin. I think with that, we're going to wrap this up. Thanks, everybody.